I load into Hogwarts Legacy and I'm greeted with the character creation screen. Now, I've always dreamed of being a student at Hogwarts since I was a young kid, so of course I made my character look just like me, only kinda skinnier. I named him Azzy Tangaroa, and he is the first ever Pacific Islander to attend Hogwarts. With all the controversy surrounding this game, I am glad that I'm able to choose my IRL pronoun. Yes, I do in fact identify as a wizard, so please remember this for future engagements. I then find myself flying through the clouds in an old-time carriage with an old man and a stranger. The stranger gives the old man a strange tube and seems to not have any idea what it is. Apparently, I'm the only one in this carriage that can see this thing on the tube is glowing. What a coincidence that the main protagonist is the only one with this ability, and just so happens to be here at the right time and place. Once I get a hold of it, the tube opens up and I see something inside. It kind of resembles a key, but then I'm warned not to touch it. Then the carriage is destroyed and the stranger is eaten by this dragon? The old man tells me to jump. Seems kind of risky, but we don't have much of a choice right now. The key is falling and we both touch the key at the same time, and then we are teleported into this cave. Once we get to our senses, the old man, whom is our teacher, then hands me a vial with what I can only assume is drugs. Now, normally, I wouldn't take any drugs from an old man while we are alone in this cave. But hey, you only live once, right? We then go through a bunch of cutscenes and a small amount of gameplay, which I consider is really a creative way of doing a tutorial, and it kind of sets up the story for us. But in summary, basically there's this small angry goblin that wants to abduct me because I have the mysterious power called Ancient Magic. I do kind of wish that the main antagonist was someone I could really fear, as this little guy just doesn't evoke any fear in me. Once we finally make it into Hogwarts, I'm sorted into my house. The Sorting Hat chooses Slytherin for me, but I'm really here to meet me some bitches. I mean witches. I did do a poll on my Twitter asking which house has the most Riz, and it turns out a majority of you think Ravenclaw does. So I joined Ravenclaw. I was then showed to my dormitory by Mrs. Weasley. Yeah, she's like the great aunt of this guy. The next morning, I meet a few of my Ravenclaw classmates. First was Everett Clompton. He threw what's called a dung bomb at these two girls, and I don't think he has any Riz. I'm gonna have to teach him a thing or two. I then meet Amit Tharkar, who has a long telescope and in his spare time likes to stare at the sky. That's cool I guess. Finally, I meet Samantha Dale. She seems to be really interested in plants or something. I kind of think she's in the wrong house. I'm pretty sure Hufflepuff does that. I then get a chance to freely explore Hogwarts. And of course, one of the first things I do is try and blast one of the other students. Because Ravenclaw for life, bitches. I then attend my first class, Defense Against the Dark Arts. And in this class, we learn the Levioso spell.
Levioso! A surprised opponent is a weak opponent. Care to defend yourself, Master Pruitt? No?
Yeah, you tell him, miss. Once I learn the spell, we're thrown straight into the deep end, and then I gotta mess up this little Slytherin boy. He should have the upper hand. After all, he's already had 5 years worth of experience at Hogwarts. He doesn't though. I guess I'm more superior than he is. Ravenclaw for life, bitches. My opponent then introduces himself straight after the battle. His name is Sebastian Swallows. Sorry. He's quite gracious in defeat, and then he goes on to tell us about this underground fighting ring just for students, and asks us to join. We then head off to our next class, and then I spot these two students just giving me the eye, so I give them some of this pow pow. We then make it to our next class, and that's where we meet this girl. Her name's Natai Onai. I think she's like an exchange student from Wakanda or something. Our professor then comes in and makes a spectacular entrance. He gives me purple Indian Santa Claus vibes, and he teaches us our next spell. It's called Accio. We then get a chance to practice this new spell on a board game specifically made for wizards. The aim of this game is to pull a lot of balls towards you, and Lord knows I love bringing balls towards me. Once I got the hang of this game, the professor forced me and Natsai to verse each other. I lost against Natsai. She is rather skilled at playing with wizards' balls. I then met Professor Ronan back in the courtyard where he taught me another skill. This one's called Reparo, which sounds more like Australian slang to me than Latin words. This spell allows me to repair any broken object back into its original form. And I guess forcing students to do this around the school keeps maintenance costs really low. Well done, Hogwarts. I was then instructed to go meet up with Sebastian. He's gonna run me all the way over to Hogsmeade so I can buy some supplies. The first store that I visit is of course Ollivander's, and this place is where we get our first ever wand. Now designing this wand was quite difficult. There were so many choices. Until we came to length. We already know that bigger is better. Before we continue, we do update our drip just a little bit. We get out of our school uniform and then put this on. It kind of gives me old grandpa wizard vibes. I'm still deciding whether I love it or hate it. Whilst I'm running through Hogsmeade with my new drip on, a troll comes into play. He's probably here just to bully me about my new clothes. I'm super impressed by the graphic quality of this game. This troll is so detailed, it's pretty much what I envisioned the internet trolls on Twitter to look like. Once fighting this internet troll, we load up our final attack, which kind of resembles Kamehameha. Has the same effect too. We then clean up the town with the new spell that we had learned, Reparo. I see the local people of Hogsmeade like to exploit the students of Hogwarts too. Hashtag capitalism. Myself and Sebastian then head over to our local bar to get ourselves a beer. I guess underage drinking isn't really a thing in this world, but that's when the younger version of the Monopoly man barges into the bar and demands I go with him. But luckily the lady that served us minors decided, no, we're not going with him. And everyone in the bar pulls their wands out and scares this man off. See you later, Mr. Monopoly Man. Don't forget to collect your $200 when you pass go. With all that craziness from Hogsmeade all out of the way, we went back to Hogwarts so we could participate in our very first underground fighting ring fight. And randomly enough, it's actually run by this little kid here. I enlisted Sebastian's help since it was a 2v2 battle, and we wiped the floor with these guys. The 12-year-old ringleader of this operation seemed quite pleased with my accomplishments and asked me to come back a little bit later. After the craziness that happened at Hogsmeade, my professors thought maybe I should learn a pretty powerful spell. And my defense against the dark arts teacher taught me this: Incendio. There's nothing like teaching students with the tendency to pyromania, fire magic. Later that night, I needed to sneak into the restricted section of the library, and I figured these glasses would make me a little bit more inconspicuous. Oh yeah, Sebastian was here to help. He taught me an invisibility spell, so we roamed around this old bird that seemed to have no idea that we were here. I mean, you're in a school full of magic kids. You really can't tell we're here?
Is someone there? Is that you, Peeves?
Who the frick is Peeves?
Who have we here? Sebastian Solo and his new little friend.
Oh, that's Peeves.
I'm going to die.
Remember the old rule, Peeves. Snitches get stitches. Anyway, Sebastian took one for the team and took the blame for this whole ordeal. I continued on with this journey as it was really important for us to finish this task. We're trying to find a book that would give us some answers to this ancient magic that I hold. We make it into the final room where we find a book floating over what looks like a bird pool. I touch it and then it secretes some liquid. Sometimes the same effect happens to me, but it depends on who touches me. And for some reason, the first thing that comes to mind is, let's put our head into this bird pool. And that's when we get a flashback of some old guy and some people healing this entire forest. And with Healing Forest at top of mind, we head on off to our next class. This class is Herbology, one of my favorites if you know what I mean. She makes us pull out plants that scream really, really loud, similar to my kids in the lounge room. You can shut these kids up by putting them back in the pot plant and covering them with soil. I wish I could do that to mine. I head on out outside of the Hogwarts castle and I meet up with Natty. Yeah, we call her Natty now. We're good friends like that. She explains that she saw me and Sebastian earlier getting pressed by the Monopoly man, whom we know now is actually named Rookwood. She then tries to find out from me why they're after me. Bit of a nosy bitch if you ask me. I then hear a commotion in the distance.
Revelio. What's going on here?
Obviously, I need to go find out what's going on. It seems to be two people causing some trouble with this old lady here. I am glad to see that these people are practicing COVID safety. It's too bad it doesn't protect them from my Levioso, or my Accio for that matter. It's now time for us to head on over to our next class, Potions. And our professor here is basically just a crippled version of Professor Snape. I go ahead and start making my first ever potion, starting by mixing around something in this mortar and pestle, then dropping a little bit of a salt bay into the cauldron, followed by a little bit of cough syrup, and voila! That's basically how you make meth, kids. Wandering around the hallways of Hogwarts, you can sometimes experience some rather strange Easter eggs. I like to stop and enjoy them, like these two knights here fighting. Apparently it does different animations every time you run past. Next we went on to do the only house specific quest that you get in this game, and since I'm in Ravenclaw, we have to head to the top of this owl tower and figure out a puzzle. This way we get introduced to this ghost guy. Richard Jackdaw is his name. If you chose a different house, your quest will look kinda different. He goes on to tell us to meet him in the Forbidden Forest at night. I don't know why it has to be nighttime. Seems to me like a bad idea to go into the Forbidden Forest at night. But before we head to the Forbidden Forest, I test out my fire spell on some of the students in Hogwarts. It would have been a fun little twist in the game if this actually worked. It'll give me more GTA vibes. We head on over to the Forbidden Forest, but right out the front there was these squeaky, beepy little flowers. So I try and set them on fire.
Incendio.
This spell seems quite ineffective to me. We make our way into the Forbidden Forest, which is supposed to be scary, but instead we run into some chickens. Of course, I tried to make myself some fried chicken. It doesn't work. Yet again. I eventually make it to the location to meet up with Jackdaw, but we have to wait until nighttime. Meeting up with a stranger in a place called the Forbidden Forest, I don't recommend, let alone a ghost. He sends me to go find his tomb. Well, it's just a place that he died. It's not really like a burial spot. But at the entrance, I'm jumped by some little people that look like they've taken too many herbology classes, if you get what I mean. Them eyes look mighty bloodshot. We make our way into the tomb, which is rather just a scary spider cave, and I score myself a new witch's hat. With all the spells that we have acquired, taking out these little spiders was kinda easy. I make it to this last little gateway where a magic bridge appears. I cross it and then I find Richard Jackdaw's body, which has an item that I've required. But these golem statues aren't too happy that I'm here, so I have to make some quick work of them. I'm glad they don't all come at me at once. It might have been a little bit harder than this was. Then I make it to the very end and I see a painting on the wall with a portrait of the person that we saw earlier in that flashback scene. Turns out I can have a conversation with him. Now either this is actually happening or I've taken too many herbology classes. I make it out of the tomb and somehow find myself in Hogwarts. I mean, I'm not complaining, it is quite convenient. I did collect a fair bit of gear from that cave though, and I'm running out of space. So I went over to this shop just to sell it all so I can make a little bit of money. The next morning I attend the class that I've been waiting to attend for so long. Our professor here teaches us the basics of flying, which is kind of strange to learn as a 5th year. I kind of thought this is what you learned in your first year of Hogwarts. Our teacher then had us fly through some hoops, which was kind of boring and whatever. And that's when our classmate asked us to get up to a little bit of mischief. So of course, we did. We got to explore more of Hogwarts on the back of these brooms, and at a much faster speed. When we got back though, we did get in a little bit of trouble and lost some points for our houses, but it was kind of worth it. And remember, Ravenclaw for life, bitches. With that class finished, we were able to go and buy our own brooms so we could fly around this entire map all on our own. I chose the Ember broom. It sounded cool to me, so that's why we got it. Comment below what broom you chose. And thanks for watching. Peace.